We hope you enjoy listening to this podcast of St. Louis on the Air, brought to you by University College at Washington University. With undergraduate and graduate programs, part-time, evening, and online. University College at Washington University, offering world-class education within reach.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. LouFest was abruptly canceled this week. We're going behind the headlines on that. I had a chance to sit down yesterday with the man who created LouFest. Brian Cohen's no longer associated with the event, but like thousands of fans, he is disappointed.
Well, it's a sad day for sure for a lot of people. I didn't necessarily see it coming, it going down this way. Certainly, was a shock to me. And we'll just have to see if we can find some answers as to why it all happened this way.
Is it easy to get into this kind of trouble in this field?
It's easy if you're not paying attention and you're not focused on the right things. There are lots of ways to get in trouble because this is a very difficult industry to be in. The finances are very difficult. The revenue is very difficult to secure. And if you're, playing fast and loose with it, if you are, if you're not laser focused on how to minimize risk, if you're not taking your responsibility seriously to the public, because to embark on an event like this, you are assuming significant responsibility for not messing it up, because it affects so many different people.
Would you go so far as to say it's a mismanagement issue?
That I don't know. I haven't been involved in this festival for a couple of years, so I'm not privy to the finances of the last couple of years of the management decisions. I just know what everybody else knows, that they're from the response of the current promoters, that there are significant issues that, in my experience, don't come up right at the end. There's warning signs along the way, so I think that's a question that needs to be answered. But yeah, I can't speak any further to that.
Most people don't understand the whole mechanics of how this works. What is the relationship between the organizers and the vendors, for instance? How does that work?
Well, the organizers need the vendors to provide services, to provide different functions for the event, whether it's food or merchandise or bathrooms. The vending applies to a whole range of services and products. And the vendor needs to have confidence that the promoter knows what they're doing, that the event is solid, that it's being responsibly produced, because the vendor provides upfront money to be a part of to be the part of the event. They provide their time and effort to get ready for the event. So there needs to be that trust that they're buying into something that's solid.
Is it a significant amount of money that the vendors put up front?
It depends. Everyone's understanding of significant is different, but if you are a vendor providing a substantial service then and getting a substantial benefit in terms of exposure and brand recognition and that sort of thing, then yeah, the buy-in can be significant. If you're on the smaller end of the scale, it also probably means that amount of money is significant to you no matter what. So I never looked at kind of big versus tall in terms of, or big versus small in terms of buy-in. I considered everyone important and everyone needed to be paid equally.
In terms of the amount of cash that is represented in an event like this, does most of it come from vendors or most of it come from tickets? Or
every event is different, and every event is set up differently. There are major lines of revenue that are consistent amongst most of these events. Ticketing is typically the most significant line. Sponsorship is usually a close second. Then vendor fees, beverage sales, and then all the ancillary things, that merchandise and things like that. So,
does any of this money get put in escrow, for instance, in case of a problem in which fairgoers or festival goers would be reimbursed for some reason?
Yeah, often it does. There's no system in place to demand that a festival hold money in escrow outside of ticketing. At least that's my understanding. But ticketing is almost always done with a third party. And so when you buy a $100 ticket, your $100 goes to that ticketing agent. It doesn't go to the festival. And then at some point, the ticketing agency transfers that money to the festival, usually after the event. for just this kind of circumstance. So if there does need to be a refund, the ticketing agent has that money still in its possession, and it can produce a refund without a problem. What happens often is that the ticketing agent and the festival or the event has a relationship where some of that money is transferred to the event before doors because there are expenses that need to be paid. Usually that happens once there's trust developed between a ticketing agent and an event. So for instance, when I started LouFest, my ticketing agent didn't know who I was. The event was brand new. So they said, we're going to hold 100% for security in an escrow account. As the years went by and I established the festival and its reputation grew and people, I developed more of a trust between everybody. Then I started to be able to access percentages, and that percentage gradually grew.
This issue of trust surfaces in many ways. I wonder if future performers are going to trust St. Louis and want to come back if they think the rug might be pulled out from under them.
That's a great point, and I think that's the thing that gets to the heart of everything that's going on. I mean, I think you can look at all of the pieces of this unfortunate puzzle, and the common denominator is the dissolution of trust. I think the fans feel like they could no longer trust the festival because the flow of information wasn't maybe what it should have been. That bled to the vendors, and they started to question that trust. It bled to the sponsors, bled to ultimately the bands. And when you lose that foundation of trust with those four groups, you have nothing left.
Are the bands generally paid up front?
It depends. Everything is negotiated individually. Typically, they want some kind of deposit up front. It could be as high as 50%. It could be as low as nothing, again, depending on how much they trust the promoter. And then whatever balance is paid when that performer performs.
Yeah. We have a staffer here who indicates that the bands, the performers these days, are charging more because they're losing part of their revenue stream in today's digital world and streaming world, if you will. Do you think they were part of the problem here, perhaps?
Well, I don't think so because, lineups are created well in advance of doors being opened. So if a band was demanding too much money, then the festival should have never booked them. Everyone's free to charge what they think they deserve, and it's up to the event to either buy into it or not.
If you were a betting man, would you think bet on the LouFest being back here next year?
I don't know if LouFest, if a festival returns under the LouFest banner, I would bet that something returns or something new is created. I think this market is, people have talked about, how do I feel about, my legacy and, kind of ending up like this. And I've had a day or so to think about it. And I think where I am is my legacy is not LouFest, but my legacy is proving the concept that a festival like this can work in St. Louis. And so somebody else will come in, somebody else will do it. I hope it'll be successful and move on. This, I think, is just a bump in the road.
And the concept has worked up until this year, no question about it.
It has, off and on. I mean, there have been tough years. This is a tough business, and every year is different. Just because you're successful one year doesn't mean you're going to be successful the next. It ebbs and tides like everything else.
Just one other point, and that is that a lot of people are hurting aside from those who wanted to go to the festival, and that is restaurants and places who would attract some of the out-of-towners, for instance, and the local residents. They're hurting. When
you wrap up a festival in this fashion, it just hurts everybody. If an event is in trouble and it needs to fold, then that's not that unusual. I mean, LouFest isn't the first music festival to collapse, and it won't be the last. But there's ways to do it, and there's ways not to do it. To wait till the last minute when all of your food vendors have pre-ordered tons of food that they can no longer use, your clothing vendors have pre-ordered merchandise that they can no longer sell, your fans have pre-purchased plane tickets and hotel rooms that are non-refundable and they no longer want. To do it in this way just ensures maximum pain. And again, I don't know all the details, but I think that's what everyone's feeling, that the way this thing went down is just the absolute worst way it could have happened.
And that's Brian Cohen, founder of the LouFest, disappointed like so many others that this weekend's event has been canceled. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to sustainable and sound conservation of the state's forests, which support more than 41,000 Missouri jobs, resulting in a $10 billion industry. ChooseWood.com.